Hello, boys. I want to cover a self-willed Infinity Paladin today. So I made one of these a while ago, and it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it, but it was very difficult with stats because you boys know when we're making a Paladin, fortunately enough, the Paladin has a lot more ease of access to all resistances. When you have a Paladin shield, it can roll with either up to ED and attack rating as the extra bonus mod, or it can roll all resistances. So we're knocking off flat 45 all res on there, and we don't have access to the weapon and extra stats. We're using a two-handed, so the build has been a little bit more challenging to figure out, but I've min-maxed a version here to show you guys what it can look like in endgame. So without further ado, let's get into the self-willed man-catcher Infinity Paladin. Strength. A little bit into strength. We have enough with Enigma and Archon just to get up to enough to wield man-catcher, right? So it's the best and fastest, decent attack speed base for our Infinity. That's what we're going for. Unfortunately, we're kind of locked to low durability. That is probably the biggest downfall of this build, right? But dexterity requirement is 134, which we have, and strength is 132. Not really a big deal. Now, depending on your charms and whatnot, you can put extra points into dexterity to increase that attack rating, but with what we're doing, bear in mind, boys, that conviction lowers enemy defense, making it easier to hit, and also in this case, you see, we have a Act 1 rogue. They have access to insight, which also reduces enemy defense. So, I probably don't even need to put extra points into that, to be fair. The rest into vitality, nothing into energy, and my resistances are reasonable, but maybe my gear is a little bit more on the unreasonable side, but we'll get to that soon. Now, for our skills, we'll start in offensive. As you can see, Holy Shock is going to be our primary aura. We have self-willed conviction, so that's awesome. So, we pump everything we can into Holy Shock to amp that higher, okay? So we've got 35 right on there. We can bump that slightly higher on switch with our CTA, so we'll do that shortly. Combat skills. Sacrifice and Zeal is maxed. We don't really care about anything else. You can get a point into charge if you want, but we have teleport, so I found that I don't use that. We also don't use Holy Shield because we have a polearm, boys. We don't have a shield. So, points we can save and put into the following. 1-point wonders here, which are all the handy, skills which you can switch over and use. Vigor and cleansing on occasion, right? Maxing Salvation as a synergy, Resist Lightning as a synergy, and then I've got a little bit of excess and Resist Fire. So, it's pretty easy. Pretty same to fill out your classic elemental Zeal Paladin. Now for the gear, let's crack in. So we have the Infinity Man-Catcher. Now this is limited to 28 durability. It is a little bit cringe, I'm not going to lie, but it's still cool and I'm doing it because I can, alright? Now, moving on, we've got Griffin's Eye. We've got an rune in here. We don't need a 15-15 attack speed jewel or anything. We don't need that right now to reach any further breakpoint, so I've just got the rune in there, okay? High Lord's Wrath. Attack speed, skills, lightning res is good, deadly strike is handy. We don't necessarily need Gore Riders, but we do have something else for resistances to get us up to the top. Run walk, and we've got tri-res, okay? Enigma in the middle. We have Drax on here, which is it's more valuable than you might think, actually. Since we're slapping with a massive pole, we have a decent chunk of physical damage. So, the 10% lifesteal goes quite far. The life after each kill is pretty nice because we're pulsing. Pulse doesn't actually give you the plus, but when pulse damage is lowering the health of other small enemies when we get to them, so we can teleport and zap and smack all the small enemies. When we kill them, we get 10 life, so that's a little bit more noticeable. But what is noticeable is when we're surrounded by packs, when we teleport in and we end up proccing life tap, that shit is going to keep us up and running, okay? We have 110 FCR ring on here. This, in conjunction with Griffin's, is going to give us 35, so we're over a certain frame breakpoint. If I double check that, I think that is 12. Yes, over 30 FCR is 12 frames. Now, for our belt, I've decided to get a little bit more resistances, a little bit more lifesteal, and I thought a crafted belt was a pretty good fit for what I needed here. And the little bit of open wounds is nice, and you also adds on top of the Drax too. So we're pretty good for single target, and don't forget Infinity has the crushing blow. The other ring is Ravenfrost, which you boys probably already guessed, and then on switch we have access to the next breakpoint up for cast rate so we can teleport faster. We have our spirit with resistances on the roll, and then we do have our CTA, right? Now, for the charms, we've got Hellfire Torch, Annihilus, the Sunder, and then the rest we have Offensive Auras with Lifers, and we have Resistances and Life. Now, I know these are kind of ridiculous. I make these, this is all here-edited stuff, okay? But if you're wondering what other stuff you can put here, is your individual set resistant charms, right? So if you get like 10 to 11 lightning res, put in a couple. You get 10 to 11 something else, put in a couple, you know? So you fill out the ones that you need according to the belt and your jewelry and your boots, right? So it really is mix and matching where you're going to get your resistances. This is just how I optimized it here, okay? So don't expect this to be your way of finding the resistances you need for this build. That's how I did it. For the Mercenary, we have Faith in the Grand Matron Bow for attack speed, and then we have F and Dariel's F Treachery to help keep her attack speed up because she's shooting some freezing arrows, and that helps a lot with crowd control. Before we jump in and do a bunch of gameplay, because I really want to show that, I want to talk a bit about some different options with gear, because you never really see two-handed Paladins, and I think two-handers look so fucking cool, and it's what I'd like to see more of them. This is something I might do in the future. There's different ways you can get the stats that you need, and you don't feel like you have to use a fucking Paladin shield to get the res and everything. Here's some different options for you boys to think about that do work with this setup, but it can also work depending on what gear you have. Two-piece deaths. You've seen this before if you've watched some of my stuff, boys. 30% increased attack speed. It covers you for poison, lifesteal, cannot be frozen, 15 all res. Okay? Incredibly underrated. Next one we do have is extremely cheap, Laying of Hands, 350 damage to demons, fire res. The damage to demons works the same as enhanced damage, so even if you have not too much enhanced damage on your infinity or other weapon or other build that you're doing, you can still get a reasonable amount of leech towards demons, right? So that's something not to flog off. Trang's Belt. Kinda niche, but it helps you fill in the Cannot Be Frozen mod. If you're having trouble trying to get a Raven Frost, or if you feel like, oh shit, I need to run my Angelics, which is, it covers your amulet, Angelic's ring, and then you've only got maybe one left which you might want for resistances or something, right? Now, Trang's Belt is going to give you a good chunk of life and cannot be frozen with a decent chunk of defense on a belt, I won't lie, right? So you can pop that in there, and that's going to cover you and have some few options to mix and match. Another few things that you shouldn't really forget about is the Cure Helm. This you can even put on yourself for cleansing. You can put it on a mercenary depending on where you're farming. I find if I'm doing anything Wheelstone Keep that this is quite handy for two-handers, but I've decided to take it out for the sake of showcasing this build. But the most important item, I would say, if you're making a two-handed Paladin, is a Kira's Guardian. It can roll resistances up nice and high. It has Cannot Be Frozen, so you don't need other things like Deaths or Raven Frosts, and you can socket that with whatever you need, okay? So I've got a 15 increased attack speed and 15 all-res jewel in there, and that's probably one of the best options you could put. But you don't have to get that crazy jewel. Kira's Guardian is extremely overlooked after like just early ladder, right? Because it's all the survivability you need for that head slot, and I believe on my first variation of this build, I was stuck to using this for a while, and it's kinda amazing. So, even if I got rid of all of these charms, boys, if I dropped all of these crazy charms, okay, so you don't have to complain about it, if I switch on my Kiras, I'm still fine, and I'm even better than I had without it. So, let's switch back to my Griffins. I've got my max damage on. I'm probably going to keep the gameplay at Players 3 for now, and we'll sit through the ugly loading screen of Frigid Highlands, and then we'll crack into this. Oh, loading screen is pretty good. So, if I switch here, I've got my Battle Command and my Battle Orders. We can chuck that on now. Now, on my main attack, I have up to 16k. Holy Shock Pulse is 3500. Let's teleport in. Let's get some gameplay going. One thing that I love the most about using polearms on Paladin is the goddamn range when using Zeal. It is so sick. It gives you a range modifier of 4. Of 4, boys. It's so awesome. If we go to Chaos Sanctuary and those casters, someone knocks the casters off the plane so you can't hit them in close range, we can actually hit them. Because our pole is so goddamn long, boys. We're massive. Where's somewhere else we can go? Let's check out Wildstone Keep. Teleport through. There's some souls. We have decent resistances, so let's kind of tick through, find somewhere. There we go. Good old life tap, doing some good work. Beautiful. If there's other different two-handed type builds that you guys want to see, let me know. I'm keen to showcase more. I'm keen to see more in general of these in Paladins. This is very easy. If you have such a high level Holy Shock with the damn sheet numbers you can see at 16k, it is pretty straightforward, right? It's not going to struggle too much. Let's go to Throne of Destruction and start clearing that. Pretty easy. Souls. Pretty happy. Mercenaries handling it pretty well too. Decrepify always makes us look a little bit bad when doing melee, but that's okay. It is fun. It is fun. If you're getting bored of hunting shields and stuff, man, just try it two-handed. There's different ways you can build it. There is. Doesn't have to be necessarily everything I showcase in this. But there's ways you can get it done. Kira's Guardian, 2-piece deaths. There's different ways to get the stats that you need, right? And everyone's going to be asking you in private games. In public games, I mean. What's with the man catching, bro? What's going on? I'm going to finish off this Bale run. And show you how quick we can nuke down Bale. Our attack speed is still pretty good, man. Pretty good with Fanaticism from the Mercenary. At level 15, I believe. We double check? Yep, sure is. Sure is 15. Unfortunately on Switch when we have our Spirit we're 5 FCR off getting to 10th frame cast rate. Little bit stinky, but it's whatever. So if we did want to switch a couple of things around, maybe chuck like a Cham Rune in, if we put a Cham Rune in the Griffins, we get a second ring with 10 FCR, then we can switch at 10 frames and be slightly faster to cast. But honestly, this is fast enough for me, and again, it depends on what you're trying to build or farm towards, and you can always make tweaks to any build that you're watching, mine or just anyone's in general, you know? Oops, my bad. Getting a little too far away. Where's my life tap at, big boy? There we go. Pretty straightforward. Razor, good old raisin. Alright, let's finish this off. Life tap would be good, because these boys hit pretty hard. Beautiful, and that's exactly what we wanted. Even with decrypt, we can still hit reasonable frames. I probably shouldn't have gone here in hindsight, because it makes my attacks look really slow and shitty. But we'll finish off with Bale anyway. This is players 3, pretty straightforward. 16k self-wield infinity, minus 55 res. Let's go. %70 chance to hit. Let's go, life tap. He's got conviction, defense is lower. Step over here so he doesn't shoot my mercenary. Paladin just looks so sick lunging. Look at that. We need to make it a thing, boys, okay? We need more. We need more spears on Paladins. We need more two-handers in games. We need to say no to the shield. Okay? It's time to say no. Let's see what my unique ring is, and then we'll finish off. Alright, Kane, what do you got for us, big boy? Wow, a dwarf star. That's us, boys. That's the build. Self-willed Infinity Paladin. It can be done. It's very strict and difficult to reach all the resistances, but you can do it. Okay? You can drop half of these. You can drop all your small skillers here. You can fill out with Kira's Guardian. You can still do amazing damage with Holy Shock. Still 11k. Okay? You don't need a lot of the crazy things to the T that I showcase in these videos. Two-handed is still viable, and I'd highly recommend it. Have a good day, boys.